All right, just pulled up. Everyone's starting to roll up right now. We are here at K1 Circuit.
And I was invited out here by Insta360 to check out their new drone.
And let's head inside, see exactly what they have in store for us. All right, just got a little overview of the Antigravity drone. Now we're heading over to the driver briefing room.
The Red Bull, that much fun.
All right, guys, we just got our briefing. We got a bunch of stuff that we're gonna need in order for us to be prepared to head up into the tracks. I'm on Group 1, and Group 1 is gonna be actually flying the drones first. So I'm gonna head over to the area now where we can prep to fly some drones. All right, so we're Group 1. We are the drone flying group.
We are the
Darren, we got Darren, we got David, and we got the other David. We are going to be piloting this thing first, so if no one else gets to fly because they all go down, you can thank Group 1. All right, guys, just finished up a few flights with this right here, the new Antigravity A1 drone. Let's talk a little bit more about it. All right, so first and foremost, what is this setup, or what comes in this setup? And what are you gonna need compared to some of the other drones on the market? This is the first 8K 360 drone. It's 360, we have cameras here at the very top, shooting that above the drone view, camera here at the very bottom, shooting everything below. What's pretty cool is that you don't get the propellers in the shot. The way the cameras are positioned here, it does not stitch. You don't have a stitch, and you don't get the propellers in your shot. Those cameras are also on a kind of a mini dampener. It's not really a gimbal, because of course you don't really need it to be a gimbal. The camera's not fully moving across because you're just reframing the video that's being shot here. But it is on a dampener. There's a dampener on the inside, just like that. So those little micro vibrations that you get, it is dampened here where the cameras are set up. Now, something to note is that you can't fly this drone without a remote control. Now, there is no standard 2 joystick remote control. You actually have to have something like this, which is a motion controller. Now, this is a very similar idea to the motion controller that something like DJI has. However, the way you actually pilot the drone is definitely different. DJI's controller, you kind of sit in one place and you can actually tilt and rotate, and you fly the drone this way. Here on the Antigravity, you actually have to physically move either your body, just like this to turn, or you move your arms like this to turn the drone. Of course, you have the trigger here for you to move forward, and if you wanted to fly the drone up, you just point the controller up, pull the trigger. You want to fly the drone down, point the controller down and pull the trigger, and you're able to do that. Now, if you wanted to turn the drone left to right, if you wanted to pan, you can either, like I said, you either turn the entire body and your remote, or you can use this scroll wheel right over here. Now, the one thing I noticed about the scroll wheel is that, yes, it does turn the drone left or right. However, it does come to an end. So if you do swipe across, it'll then turn it only how far this thing goes. So if you swipe, it'll then turn, swipe, turn. So you don't have a full kind of like if you were just to push it to the right, it'll automatically keep turning. Kind of wish it did that, but it does not. It's just a scroll wheel, and once you kind of spin it once, it then turns once. So a little bit different than you might think of how it'll work. Now, for the most part, it is somewhat intuitive. However, if you are used to, or if you've flown the Avata, the DJI Avata, or the DJI Neo, it does not fly the same as that. It is definitely different than that drone. So you don't have that ability to just kind of sit and pilot the drone like this. You actually have to physically move your body around for you to fly the drone, or you have to move your arms around. So when it comes down to, I would say, accessibility and movement, you have to do a lot more movement with this drone or with this remote control in order for you to pilot it. Now, something to note for this event, the 8K firmware is not ready at the moment. Either way, when we are talking about 8K, we're really talking about 4K camera here, 4K camera here. They are working on the updated firmware for it to be full 8K, and then I guess it'll officially be the first 8K drone. Next, let's talk about how you actually see what the drone sees. And you don't see it with a remote control, you don't see it on your mobile phone. You use this right here, which they are calling the Antigravity Vision goggles. Now, what's pretty cool about these goggles is that you do have a screen here, which previews what the pilot is seeing in camera. Right here is actually a touch screen, so you can actually change and touch the settings on this side. You have the focus, right here at the very bottom. You do have a camera, so you do see a pass through, so you're able to see outside of the goggles. And then of course you have on the inside foam padding, and you do have a SD card here right in the middle. Now, what makes this experience different than flying something like the Neo or the Avata is that with the Neo and the Avata, you have a camera up front, and you are only able to fly the drone and pilot the drone by seeing out of that front camera. The difference with the, he's jamming. The difference here with the anti-gravity is that you're able to pilot the drone with the motion controller, but at the same time, while the drone is moving or if it's stationary, you are now able to look around. Because of the fact it's shooting in 360, I can actually keep the drone hovering and look completely behind me. I can look straight down, and you're able to see all of those different angles, those 360-degree angles through the goggles here. Now, speaking of the reframing, that's what the 360 cameras in general are really good at. When you're flying the drone, just the same way if you have an X5, the 360 cameras up in the air, all you have to do is put the camera in the vicinity that you want to get the shot. You can hit record and just know it's shooting everything in 360. Then what you do in post-processing, you're just going to go back into the Insta360 software and then reframe it. So if there is a drone, if my drone is actually flying right above the track and the carts are coming right by, I can leave the drone there and I can reframe it. So I can take a video of the carts coming through and then continuously keyframe, or I can track, AI track, and I can have the camera now track those subjects all the way through that pass. I can also fly the drone in that direction, and I can have the drone go this way, carts are coming this way, and I can actually track it underneath it. A bunch of different ways you're able to reframe the video. Pretty much any way you can reframe the video, whichever way you can think of, you can reframe it because you are always shooting in 360. Next really good feature about this drone, which I know a lot of people will be happy about, is that even though it is kind of chunky, a little bit bigger, a little chunkier than a mini drone, is that it does sit under that 250 gram mark, which means if you are in an area where you have those regulations that if you have drones that are over 250 grams, you need to register it. Lucky enough, this sits under 250 grams, so you technically don't have to register your drone. You of course still have to abide by all the standard FAA rules when flying a drone. One pretty cool feature with this drone is that because the camera here on the very bottom is exposed, they have these little feet that come out automatically when you go in landing mode. That way it prevents that camera from tapping the ground. So you have these little feet that pop out, and that way it keeps the drone from hitting the lens when you are landing. Now, overall, my experience of flying this thing is definitely coming from flying DJI drones, from the Avata to the Neo. The experience is different. I don't want people to think that if you can fly those, it's going to be exactly the same. It's actually not. The way you are piloting the drone with their anti-gravity motion controller is different. So you have to kind of relearn that. And if you've never flown either a motion controller at all, then you don't have to relearn anything. You can just pick this up and go with it. So it did take me a second to learn how to relearn how to use this motion controller compared to DJI's. Next thing I saw that was different is because the motion controller and how you pilot it is actually different, the way you're actually looking through the goggles is also different because you have an FPV view, which is a smaller view of the camera pointing straight, and then you also have the actual view of what the camera can see in whatever direction you're pointed. Again, because of the fact that you are seeing in 360, you could technically just continuously look around and the frame will change in the goggles. And the one that is different is that you're not looking at your picture in a widescreen, you're looking at it in a square format. Again, because you're not necessarily dealing with just a widescreen 16:9 shot, you're looking at it in 360, which is actually shooting in a square format. So you're able to see even through the goggles in that square format. So that definitely is a little bit different if you are used to flying with other goggles. Now, something to note is that there were some delays. There were some, I would say, transmission delays when we were out there flying. I don't know if it's if the drone's hitting the brakes, or is it my goggles, or it's like the delays hitting the brakes. And these are things that they're going to be continuously working through. And these are things that I've brought up with them before, is that if you are out there flying, even if you're in somewhat closer proximity, you might see some jitter, you might see some little latency delays, and that's something that they're going to be, they said they know, and they're going to be, they've gotten feedback, so they know about that is something that they're going to be kind of working through as they do more and more firmware updates. But once you get the drone out there, and if you have a nice open area, you can still get some pretty good solid transmission. However, there is some known, kind of glitching, I would say, just depending on where you're flying. Sometimes I was able to fly, pretty far out there and I'll be fine. Other times I'll be actually in close proximity and I might see a little delay in the video. So that's something that hopefully they'll be able to iron out once they go through and work on the actual production units. Now, my overall experience with the drone definitely is unique. And again, I'm coming from traditional drones. So if you are coming from that traditional side of drones, there is a learning curve when you're actually looking at your screen through the goggles, because of the fact that you're able to move the drone or move the frame around live view. Having them lock the view is something that I did bring up to them. It would be nice if you could just lock the view. That way you can fly it more like a traditional FPV and not worry about seeing all the scenes. Something I would like to see is them being able to lock it. Also, motion controller, it is cool. However, again, I think a lot of people would like to have just a standard remote control, and that's something I'd like to see. Now, pairing this drone with go-karting, definitely a super fun experience here. Getting a first look at Antigravity, their first 8K 360-degree drone. Nice to be part of this pretty fun event. If you guys got value from this one, a huge like, be much appreciated. This is Ultra Saucio with FlytPath.com. Hopefully by the end of the year, I'll see you guys out there with the Antigravity A1 8K 360 drone. Take care.